Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you can hear me. Okay, yes? Yes. I think we should start to stick on time. There might be more people joining in a few minutes, but let's start with the introductions. So my name is Pablo. I am the president of the Systematics Association. With me, we have Leonie Beric and Rose Siegemeier, who are waving their hands now, representatives from the Linnean Society. We have Anne Youngblood, who is our awards officer and the person who will be leading this session. Basically, this webinar is focused on the LinnéSys. It's a joint grant scheme that the both societies organize. It's one of very few schemes providing funding for research on systematics and taxonomy, and we're very proud to do so. It's been active for a few years now. The amount provided, the funds provided has been growing little by little every year, thanks to contributions from both societies. So we are very proud of that too. And because the number of people applying to this call is always high, we thought we will organize this webinar to explain it in a bit more detail and also answer any questions that you may have. So any questions that you have, no question is a silly question, please ask it and we will reply. So thank you again for being here. And Anne, I think we can start maybe explaining the scheme again.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pablo. And yeah, thanks everybody for joining the webinar. Share screen. Is it sharing?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So yeah. And I live at a busy street, so there might be some sort of disruptions from noise coming from the street. So yeah. So I would like to give you an overview of this research fund that is jointly administered by the Linnean Society and the Systematics Association. Give an overview of what's funded, what we're not funding, the application process, and then interested in any question. And hopefully it will make it easier for people to write the application and make it a more accessible to apply. And maybe there are some of you there who haven't applied yet because they thought, oh, my work doesn't fit in, but it maybe does. And so hopefully it's helpful, this webinar. Interesting. So okay, I'm gonna make it small. So it's a joint fund of the Linnean Society Systematics Association, with the Linnean Society contributing to kind of 2/3 of the funds and a smaller proportion coming from the Systematics Association. And it's an annual fund, and it's for small-scale research and education projects in the field of taxonomy and systematics for any organism group, ranging from microscopy to macroscopy to past and present. So that's the thing, questions that we regularly receive, that people ask are, do you fund microbiology? If people have isolated a new strain of fungi or algae, does it fund microbiology, microscopic life? And it does fund microbiology, and it funds past and present. So it's from studying paleo, like we have paleo projects, field work. We have everything from dinosaurs to current biodiversity. So I did a quick word cloud of all. I took the titles from the awardees from last year and did this quick word cloud. And the key topics that came up is the systematics, taxonomy, cryptic species using phylogeny, morphology, using at evolutionary questions, use at complex community, radiations. So it's really everything around taxonomy and systematics that is covered. So yeah, so what is covered? What would be an eligible cost to include in the application? And so this year we actually slightly revised the guidelines. So if people who applied in the past, they will see that the information is slightly changed, and hopefully that will make it also a little bit easier to understand. So the LinnéSys will support costs towards fieldwork expenditure, to any costs towards any laboratory costs, consumables, whether it's deemed for molecular work, if it's for staining methods, for chemicals, any consumables. It will, the fund also support the purchase of scientific equipment. So if the LinnéSys would be contribute a portion of the overall cost of a piece of equipment, we would need to see that the other costs have been already secured. So if there is clearly, if there is an application said, okay, we have already 80% of our costs, and with the LinnéSys funding, we can purchase this equipment, then that would be enough explanation. But if it would just say, oh, I want to buy this equipment, and this amount by the LinnéSys will help me to eventually buy it, then probably that wouldn't be enough explanation. We also support time on analytical equipment. So if there's a facility and they charge, say, by the hour to use a specific imaging equipment, so we would cover that, the time on an analytical piece of equipment. And services for preparation of specimens, like if you have to do certain like thin sectioning or these kind of preparations that you can't do by yourself, and there's a service charge with it, we cover that. And then we cover also the cost of sequencing. So the LinnéSys does not support costs for student allowances, cover tuition fees, hire of staff, or cover of bench fees. So basically the difference between the different things are, so if somewhere there isn't, you want to use a specific piece, say, of analytic equipment, so that might be the time, but it would not be possible to say, okay, I want to go to this laboratory, and this laboratory asked for a general bench fee. Even though a piece of equipment would be in there, it has to be for a specific piece of equipment that allows to deliver the objectives in question, the data for your research project. And similar, the difference between services for preparation of specimen and hiring is also that it's the preparation of a specimen is a specific piece of work to deliver the objectives, but it's not possible to hire a student and write in the application, there is this work and the work needs to be done, and it's going to take this long and it's going to be that type, so I want to hire a student for the summer, and I want to give the student that much money for the living allowance. So we don't cover living allowance or hire of staff. So then we are also funding certain types of publishing, and the type of publishing that we are supporting is costs towards publication of books, publication of monographs, publication and printing of field guides. So we feel that these are really important contribution to systematics and taxonomy. However, it's often quite hard to get financial support for these kind of type of publishing. The fund does not support the publication of open access cost of manuscripts in scientific journals, as we feel there are various likely other sources where this could be covered. And the award does also not support the attendance at scientific meetings. So the LinnéSys funds are also happy to support certain type of education activities and training courses, like the running of education activities and the running of training courses and citizen science projects. So it's not attendance at these events, it's for holding these events. And these kind of activities, education and training activities and citizen science, fall under the LinnéSys if there is a clear focus on taxonomy and systematics. There has to be also already some kind of plan in place on how the course education activity would unfold. So that would be basically there should be include target audiences, like approximate number of participants, what are the anticipated learning outputs. If you are interested in citizen science and would be planning a citizen science project, for the LinnéSys to be able to assess if it's a suitable project, it's important to describe how this project, like the team that writes this LinnéSys application and will run the citizen science project, how they are working together with the wider public, and or even better, if how they would co-design this citizen science project with the public, because the core of citizen science work is working and developing science programs and gathering data for science with the public. So that would need to be outlined. And then it would also have to outline the desired outcomes of the citizen science research. And then we know that a lot of students apply to the project, and we also fund a lot of students. And so we have some additional information for student-led projects. And so it's really important for us to support student projects. However, we feel that a LinnéSys award should not be the main source to fund a student's project. So when we think of PhD or master's project, we see it as there is, I guess, a bigger project, or the student would have a supervisor who have developed the project with the students and planned the project conscious of the budget that the student project would require. And so we feel a LinnéSys should not be the main source of a student project. So if you would like to fund a project, a research activity that is part of your project, it would be really important to explain why the proposed research activity was not budgeted for in the original funding proposal for the project, and yeah, why it was not considered. And also outline how the funds would allow to pursue an additional research question that was not part of the original project plan. So I think it's, quite common that there is a research plan for, there is a research plan for a project and there is a budget. And while the student is, or you are doing your work, you suddenly have another opportunity, you have new opportunities that were not anticipated when you set up the PhD project outline, like taking part in additional field work, or somebody makes available certain samples, or you are getting invited to join another research laboratory to do another type of analysis that will contribute to a project, then these are all things that are covered because they were not part of the original project outline. Yeah, so that's kind of an outline on what the LinnéSys funds and doesn't fund. And so now I have a really busy slide, which is copied from the application. It's literally copied from the application form, which goes through the eligibility criteria and the format guidelines for the application outline. So in order to be eligible to apply for LinnéSys, it's important to be a current member of either the Linnéan Society or the Systematics Association. And a current member means that you pay the membership fee this financial year, like not financial year, this calendar year, like in 2022. The membership fee has only to be paid before the deadline. So there is no need to have done it well in advance. It's basically when we receive all the applications, and after the deadline, we check if there is a registered membership for 2022 with either the Linnéan Society or Systematics Association. So as long as you pay the membership an hour before you submit your application, you will be fine. I'm just gonna see if I can. Okay, yeah. So Pablo just added the links for the Linnéan Society membership page and also the Systematics Association. Yeah, so then as we always have a really high number of applicants, and also we consider that probably research projects will take a year. We applicants are only eligible if they don't have been funded in the last 2 years. So if you had a project submitted and been awarded a LinnéSys award in 2020 and 2021, you're unfortunately not eligible. If you submitted a project, but it was not funded, you can submit a project for this year, for 2022. You're also allowed to resubmit the same project. So yeah, so that's on submission of project and awarding project. And then, so the application, so now I've got some information on the formatting of the application, and we only have very few guidelines, but there's still every year a few applications that we unfortunately can't consider for the award because people don't don't apply the formatting that we have outlined in the application form. And then we unfortunately, even though if it's a really cool project, we can't make an exception. And a main formatting rule for the application form is that the whole application can only be a maximum of 1 side A4. And that includes the figures, the table, the references, and the budget. So it's an A4 page that needs to cover everything. So it's not allowed to have figures on a second page. It's not allowed to have the references on a second page. And it's not allowed to have the budget on a second page. And unfortunately, every year there are a few applicants where this happens. And then I'm always very, have to send very kind of apologetic email to tell people that unfortunately it can't be considered for review. And the application, also the writing. So in order to make it a bit more fair of how much content people can add to the application, the font size needs to be at least 10 point. The application also needs to begin with the application's name, the email address, the institution, and the project title. And that are really the main formatting criteria. We don't have any criteria on the edges and all these things, or whether it's double spaced or single spaced. It's mainly, it has to be 1 page and it can't have a font smaller than 10 points. So then coming to the budget. So we are funding project applications of a value of £1,500. We, however, aim to fund as many projects as possible, and overall kind of aim expect the majority of funds being around £1,000, and applications that go up to 1,500 we feel has to have a clear justification why the full amount, like a strong justification why £1,500 will be needed. Then from the content, what we're going to look at and what we're going to review when we are when we are assessing the proposal is that the proposal should cover some background information. So all the reviewers are experts in taxonomy, systematics, evolution, and a range of taxonomic groups. They will be probably not an expert to your particular group of plants or lizard or fungi. So it needs to have a short and simple introduction, background information on the research topic. It needs to have the rationale of the project, like why is the project important? Why is there a knowledge gap? And then have like a research question and objectives, and then a short explanation of how the objectives, how the data will be generated by explaining the methodologies. The application should also cover the anticipated research outputs and broader impact, which I guess lead to why is there a knowledge gap? Why is it important? Why do we look at this research question using taxonomy and systematics? Or why that group? And so the anticipated research outputs. And I mean, we asked to come up with a project that can be achieved within 1 year. And so we don't, I mean, it's very unlikely that the data will be fully analyzed within a year or that a paper will be published. So these research output could cover some indication of will it be leading to a scientific publication? Is there idea what journal it might be, what journal it is aimed to, if it would be creating species lists, like what kind of keys will be developed, will they be published on a website, if it would be about publication, what would be the publisher, what would be the end product, if it's about education work, the outputs would be the type of education material, what are the learning outputs from the training course. So it's like some information on what the outcomes and outputs will be. And yeah, I added also if you are planning to submit a citizen science project, in addition to have the background and the rationale, a citizen science project should have everything that I guess a research project has with the outputs and the questions, but it also has to highlight how it's a project that's to develop together with the public, or how the data will be generated with the public. And that's on the application format and the information that we will look at when we assess these applications. So then I did a screenshot of the application form, and we think it's quite simple and hopefully not be quite clear, but I'm also really interested to hear if people find the application page could be improved. So for the application, the online page requires the name, institution, address. It requires an email address. The applicant has to confirm if they're a member of the and/or Systematics Association or LinnéSys Society, and confirm that they have not received funding in the last 2 years. And then the next page is about the actual project. So the project title needs to be entered, the amount requested, then the one-page PDF needs to be uploaded. And then we have some additional text boxes. So the first one is that outlines if any other project, any other funds are available. So an example, say, so you are a student and you do your PhD, and most things of your PhD are funded, but there is this this new idea that you developed, or you have this new opportunity, and you think with the LinnéSys you can follow up this opportunity. So then in that box you would describe how your project has your overall PhD is funded, but this one opportunity needs the LinnéSys. And then we have a box where you can add any applications in the last 5 years. And that's sort of more for us to get an overview of what, if you've applied before, or if you've been funded before. So it's just an overview, not really used for the assessment. And then we also ask for the current status and association with the research work. If you say undergraduate student, postgraduate student, if you're a permanent researcher, if you're a freelance researcher, if you're a retired researcher, so that information. And then just tick that you read the guidelines, and also that you will stick to the rules and regulations that are administered with the grant. And then, yeah, you're ready to submit. And then when the project, when you've submitted it, you will receive a confirmation that will give you a date by when we will announce the outcome of the LinnéSys. So yeah, and so then the last thing is as part of the award, we will ask, so any awardee will be asked to write a report. And so it's part of the requirements for us for being a charity to report that the funds are used for what it was outlined to be used. And so we anticipate that the projects can be carried out within 1 year. And so then we will ask any awardee to send a project within 12 months. So probably on months 11 or 12, you will receive an email by me reminding you about the reports. And then, yeah, we have some basic guidelines on the reporting. We might send you some more information, but yeah, so then we ask for a short report of roughly 500 words, giving an overview of what was done with the funding and how far you've been with your project. And then kind of associated with the LinnéSys award, we have we have a prize. So we have the Sir David Attenborough Prize for Fieldwork. So every year we give this prize for the report, for the best fieldwork report from the previous year. So yeah, so once we received, after 12 months, we received the reports, I will probably send a reminder, and then I will send a deadline saying anybody who wants to be considered, who has done fieldwork, wants to be considered for the award, for the prize, has to submit their report by a certain deadline. And then we will look at the report and assess them, and the winner will get a certificate that's signed by Sir David Attenborough, and also a cash prize for £200. And actually, yeah, and that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Did you say what's the deadline?
No, I haven't. So the deadline is, it was the 14th of March at midnight, GMT midnight. And yeah, and so there is a online cutoff. So the application form will go offline around that time. Yeah, so that's a brief outline. How should we do it? do a question, or maybe finish with the talk about how maybe we want to engage more with some of what these by with Leonie and Ross. Maybe do you want to continue, and then we do a question at the end?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'll pass on to the Linnéan Society.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Lainey. This is Ross. We both work at the Linnéan Society. We both work in our comms team, our communications team, and I work on publications amongst other things. And
I work on podcasts and videos and animations.
So what we'd like to do going forward with all the successful applicants is think about how we can help promote both the fund and their research from the fund. So we would probably be in touch with people about possibly writing a blog. We're going to be also putting together some short, potentially self-filmed by you videos that we would put together for you. So it have a pretty professional look, we hope. And also things like articles that we would be putting out in our publications and the Systematics Association's publications as well. So that kind of thing. So we just wanted to sort of put that out there so that you know that it might be that we might be in touch with you about your research and your projects in the future.
Yeah, exactly. So we want to promote as much as we possibly can the work that you do.
Yeah.
And the work that you do using these monies. Thank you, Leonie. We have one question in the chat already, and should we start with that?
Yeah, so yeah, please put your questions in the chat or raise your hand for any questions you have for us from the Systematics Assertion in Linnéan Society. So there was one question, one can apply 2 different applications for 1 calendar year? I think we don't really have that much. I would probably, good question. I would probably say ideally not. Maybe I'm just gonna, I think usually people just apply for 1. So I would say it's best just to, yeah, I would say no, you can only submit 1.
I would say it's extremely unlikely that a candidate is awarded 2 applications in the same round.
Hello and good evening. Hi.
Sorry, there is a question from Sabine first, who's raising.
Okay, good. Yeah, sorry.
Hand here.
Hi, thank you. So my question is about how should I approach my application so that the chances of getting it increases, because I did my master's thesis. I mean, I did my master's in Portugal. So I flew there, did my master thesis there about macroalgae. So I sampled in the north and in the south of Portugal and compared what we found with the historical data. So we did that for 2020, and I did apply to this fund to do an additional sampling to include the seasonal variation, but the application was not successful. But my supervisors were interested in the results, and we went forward. But for my master thesis, I only managed to process the samples from 2020 by doing everything. And so I have my master thesis, and I have all these samples from 2021, which we also detected an extremely invasive species that we are actually writing a manuscript about. And I would need the fund to get back to Portugal, get in the lab, finish identifying the samples to actually publish this long-term study with historical data that we somehow didn't manage to finish. My supervisors don't have the funds right now for me to go forward. And since the fund does not support student allowance bench fees or other costs. I was wondering, how can I approach this so my chances increase?
I mean, so yeah, I mean, so I mean, you mentioned it's, I mean, there is some, so first, I'm sorry you weren't awarded a project, and I wouldn't know at the moment the reasons for why, so I'm sorry about that. So, I mean, it is allowed to include travel funds. And if there is a need to carry out the work, if there is a need to do the work in Portugal, to carry out the work because of the expertise there, or because the specimens are there, or you need to collect more specimens, then that it could be used for that travel work. So actually, I realized I didn't have here the details that, for example, we fund people visiting museum collections. So actually, I realized it's not in there. So yeah, so it's the same, like if you have specimens in a certain place, or you need to access certain expertise, then that is eligible.
My samples are formally in the laboratory of the south of Portugal, and that's where I have the laboratory. I could go, and I have the space and the time. I just have to be there physically, and that will be what the fund would somehow cover. But I don't know how to approach it. Yeah,
I mean, it's quite fun. So we have quite regularly applications, people visiting museum collections, and so then they asked for travel cost and hotel accommodation, and to do the work, say, for a few weeks at that museum, in that museum collection. And so that is very distinct for us than a living allowance, which is kind of a form of studentship or salary.
I mean, here, instead of paying 2 weeks of hotel nights, it will be paying like the rent of 2 months I will need to be in the lab to finish processing all the samples. And another if this could not be, I could ask the fund to fly to another university in the north of Spain to do a collaboration with an expert with the seaweeds to have more, to add credibility to the results. But ideally, yeah, the working in Portugal would be the aim.
Yes, I say there is a support. It supports travel and accommodation if that is needed to be in a certain institution or museum to access specimens and expertise. And so the application would have to state why the applicant has to be in that location, the institution or collection, and has to be in a certain research environment to access the expertise and specimens.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I did ask for another to collaborate with the local university here, but the researcher told me that they don't have the time and the space in the lab to make this happen. So that's somehow why it should be there.
Or you can explain that in your proposal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sabian. And I'm going to read 3 questions from the chat that I think are quick to answer.
The question,
so I can read
can the project be species specific, as in the growth and reproductive patterns of a particular species? So if the growth and reproduction patterns are used in some way to distinguish species in the context of systematics and taxonomy, evolution, evolution, different species, cryptic species, then that is falls within the core of the project. The next question.
Yeah, so that is important. The projects have to have a strong taxonomic or systematic component.
Yeah, so it can't be.
That's within the remit of our
Exactly. So if it would be a study saying, oh, it's about understanding, we have different species and we want to know if they have different growth physiology, then it seems to be more a physiological problem rather than a taxonomic systematics problem.
Yep.
So the next question, I'm not working under any institution, however, I'm interested in applying, am I eligible? Yes, you are eligible to apply. So we supporting people who are, say, working freelance or retired emerite professors, and yeah, people are eligible to apply. You don't need to be affiliated to an institution. And the payment, if people are not affiliated with an institution, the payment can be made to a private account. I mean, the priority, if people are affiliated to an institution, it has to be made to the institution. But if the people clearly say, I'm not affiliated, then it can be paid to a private banking account.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 2 queries. Do you need any kind of official endorsement from the parent institution? No, we're not asking for a letter because we assume that people would only apply for a project if they know they can actually do the work in the institution they say they can do it. If the PI is selected for the grant, will be the money deposited? Exactly. So if somebody is affiliated with an institution, it has to be paid to the institution. If the people are not affiliated, it can be paid to a private account. Clarify bench
Then
fee.
whether, ideally the money will be accessible by the awardee, directly by the awardee. So if we send the money to someone else's account other than the institution, someone is saying here the PI, that might complicate it. So the institution with direct access by the awardee is best.
Bench
bench fees.
and then that one, and then sorry, go.
Answer that one, the bench fees, and then we'll go to people with raised hands.
Yeah. Yes, so bench fees. Does it mean we can't ask for money to pay people to perform lab work, but if we ask money to purchase reagents and cover sequencing costs, that's okay? Yes. So we cover costs for reagents, for sequencing costs, for your sequencing, like you can send the sequencing to a sequencing company. You can pay for access as a piece of equipment, so equipment that's essential for generating the data. But we don't cover a general bench fee. So a bench fee would be to be in a space for a day. So so we don't cover bench fee, and we don't pay staff time. So it's possible to pay for a service. So if an institution has a specific activity like making thin sectioning of specimens, and there have to be sections, cryosection embedded, and the university, the institution, or there is an external company and they have a fee, say it's a certain amount of money per specimen, then we pay for that. But you can't hire somebody and say, we have a cryo-sectioning equipment in our lab and I want to hire somebody for 3 days to do it for me. So that's not possible. Okay, let's go to
and sorry, one something that occurred to us. You may want to mention that there are some places where we cannot send the money for.
Oh yeah, so I mean, it's a very rare cases. So there are so the funding is, the payment is transferred by the Linnean Society and the funding is administered via the bank that the Linnean Society has their funding. And so the UK bank underlies UK government regulations. And so there are very few countries which are embargoed by the EU government. And there is their web pages, there are very few countries. I don't have the list in front of me. And if a UK bank is not allowed to transfer money to that country, we unfortunately can't give to the researchers award a project. And so, yeah, so if anybody thinks there might potentially be one of countries, please have a look. I think we included a link. If there is no link, please email me, and I'm very happy to help. I mean, we would like to pass it to every country, but it's not from the society, it's just that we had these really administrative hurdles, and people applied for a project and they were awarded it, but then there was just no process to actually get the money to them, and to just get people not to invest the time in writing and applying and hoping to get the funding. So we thought we include that, but it's really the rarest cases. Shall I quickly we do the
hands up.
hands?
Barbara,
do you have a list? I see there Barbara.
And Sunday.
Yeah.
Barbara? Yep. So Barbara first, because you raise your hand first, and then Iswandi.
Yeah.
You're muted.
Okay. Better?
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for organizing the webinar, first of all. I would be curious to know how accurate, how specific should be the budget that we should in the presentation of the project, because most of the times it's an estimation, right, of what we will need up to a certain amount, of course. For example, I would need to do genetic molecular analysis of my specimens in order to see whether they support the morphological analysis that we done until now, but specimens were in very bad state, so we would need to do molecular ones to support it. So we would need to buy primer and then do sequencing. It's just estimation cost, because we still don't know which will be the exact cost, of course, of these analyses. So how important is to, I don't know, to estimate the real cost of our research, and do we have to later support it and to include, I don't know, the receipts of all these costs in our report that we should send to Linnean Society at the end of the project? That's the first question. Maybe I forgot the second one. I will remember it in a while, I suppose.
Yeah, so thank you very much. So yeah, it's always very difficult to estimate costs. And so I would say try to do it as precise as possible. And I mean, it is always a little bit of an estimation, but it should be as precise as possible. I mean, the people who review it, they will have we have a lot of people who are working a lot with DNA sequencing, and so they know it's going to be an estimation, but they will see if it's unreasonable. So if you do an estimation of approximately X number of sample and DNA extraction and sequencing be that many, I don't know, pounds, and so 50, whatever, if you have 50 times that cost, then I think that's sufficient. And there is, I mean, the application is only 1 page long, so there is not much space. So we don't expect to list every reagent that's needed for PCR, or every reagent that's needed for primers. I mean, if you would have a study that needs 100 primers, then maybe it's good to say that you need 100 primers. But if it's a standard PCR and standard sequencing approach, I would estimate and provide the estimate. And people know that it's not going to be 100% correct, but the reviewers will notice if it seems unreasonably high from their experience. And yeah, and so that's that. And so we don't ask for receipts. So the whole funds, so once the project is awarded, the whole amount will be transferred. And we will, and then when you write the report, we, in the guideline, we request that you state that you use the costs for what you said you use. And we kind of trust people, they used it for what they said. And then, I mean, we have it and we appreciate it if people say they apply for a project and they get the project awarded, but their research work completely changes and they don't do the work anymore, then we ask them to contact us and potentially return the money. And so, for example, we also done transfer within the lab. So we had a case, somebody applied for a bigger grant. They also applied for the LinnéSys. Then they got the bigger grant. And so they had the work already done. So then they emailed and said, oh, well, somebody in my lab does a similar project. Could we use the money for that similar project? And then we we would not want to do that because this other person didn't go through the full application process. Yeah, but yeah, we don't. Yeah, so we don't ask for the receipts. Yeah.
And a question in relation to that, I don't know the answer, but because we are talking in UK pounds.
Yeah,
we expect the budget to be in pounds.
Yeah.
So no euros, no dollars.
Yeah, it needs to be in pounds. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Even though you can.
But I think it's never been the project. No, never been the I think people always. I think
you're of course going to pay on your local currency.
Yeah.
That's fine, but
yeah,
for the proposal, in order to be able to compare them, we need them in pounds, please.
Okay, and I remember my second question.
Yeah, what's your second question?
It's about the notification deadline, because I applied the project last year. It wasn't financed at the end, but that's okay. This year will be better, I hope so. But I remember that the notification deadline that was in the that was wrote on the website last year came much later at the end. I think, I don't know if it was announced for 15 April. I think we waited like until 15 May or something like that. It's not to criticize now, it's just to know how to organize our work that cannot wait for a long time, maybe. So how much do you think will be accurate the notification date, which this year is, I think it's 15th of May?
I think we always aim to have it on that date. And then I think last year, I don't know what happened. There were various delays, unexpected delays. So yeah, so we're aiming for that date, and ideally not more than 2 weeks later, only if some sort of other issues occur. And we had sort of various other delays last year. So yeah, so we aim to be at that.
Okay.
That date.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So then next one is Vani Idris.
Hi, thanks for organizing the seminar. I'm from Malaysia. I think my question is about similar with the one asked by Dante Underwood. It's about the career cost. Let's say that if at the end of the project we found that this is a species new to science, and we would like to deposit the voucher specimen to other repositories, probably in other countries. So can we include that cost into the budget?
Sorry, could you repeat?
Okay. My question is, let's say at the end of the project, we found that the species that we're working is new to science, so we need to deposit specimens, right, to repositories.
Okay.
So ideally, we need to send to several repositories, right? So can we use put in the budget for courier fees for postage the specimens to other repositories? That's one case. And the other thing, if you want to do comparison study, so we need to learn specimen from, let's say, from the Australia. So can we include the budget? Let's say in most cases, the sending is free, but we need to cover the cost in returning back the specimens to the repositories. So can we include that budget as well?
Yes, yeah, that can be included.
Okay.
Because the overall, I mean, if you have specimens shipped for and back, I mean, overall it'd be still more cost efficient than actually traveling as a person to the country. So
Indeed.
Yeah, no, that's
Okay.
covered.
Thanks.
There was a question in the chat along the same lines. So that's also whether reports from previous years can be consulted. That has been a private question, sorry, I raised it here.
Yeah.
Some of them are available on our website, some others will be available soon, because we are refurbishing it. But some of them are there, and more will be there in the next few days.
Yeah, so there are some online. Somebody asked about a CV. Yeah, we don't ask for a CV. Because it's a small fund, and it's about the work, and so yeah, it's about the work that's proposed, and we don't feel need to have the evidence the person can do the work. We just assume people write these projects if then they know how to do it.
Any more questions? Nothing on the chat?
No.
Yeah, one more on the chat.
Okay.
You fund projects which are sort of meta-analysis or review and which do not involve any lab equipment or field visits?
Yes, I mean, if you need certain consumables or specimens, or if you need resources to do meta-analysis, you can, it's eligible to apply for these resources.
So because the comment is a bit longer, this is not a fellowship scheme, so I don't think you can apply to this looking for a salary.
Yeah, so you can't apply.
It has to be expenses directly related to your work. If it's a meta-analysis that doesn't involve any expenses or consumables, or it might not be the place to apply for money. But if there are expenses that are associated with that study, the scheme definitely covers them, but not the salary.
Yeah, so I think that's on the application process. I mean, from the number, I can just give some.
Just one additional
yes,
question.
Please. Yes, please.
I realized that basically most of the applicants will apply as a PI, but do you think it's more convincing if we apply as a team? Like say we have co-researchers in line with in the applications?
One sec.
Oh, where's it come? I mean, there has to be, so if there is one person, there has to be one person who will lead the project. And so this person would submit the project. I mean, it's not needed, it does not need to be a team. If you want to highlight how it's the team will contribute to address the objectives, will help, or the complexity of the project, or the different, if it's an interdisciplinary project, I really encourage to mention the expertise of the team. But it does not require a team, and projects will not be evaluated differently whether it's one person or if it's a team.
Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, the only, I guess, the only thing, I mean, it is, it is, I mean, the application is only one page, but I recommend to put, effort in writing it. So we usually have around 150 eligible applications. And again, it's really important actually that you're a current member. So usually we have, well, not 10%, but we usually have, I don't know, 5-6% of submissions that are not eligible because people have not paid their membership. Because it has been a little bit confusing. So people might have paid in the past, but then they forgot to pay for the calendar year. So basically, if you paid for 2021 and you submitted a project and unfortunately it wasn't funded, and so then you apply for 2022, you need to pay for another membership, unfortunately. And so once, unfortunately, there are a few applications that are not eligible because not being a member. It's important. So then we usually still have 150 applications, and we usually fund between, I think these are 30 to 40. So so it's kind of a 1, 2, 3, 4 chance to get funded. And that's for that fund. Yes, Sabine.
I would like to know, maybe it's in the web, maybe it might have slipped, but what else can we do with the membership of, for example, I'm a member of the Systematics Association. Because last year I thought about it like, okay, now I'm a member of the association, but what else can I do with it? Like, I don't know.
That's a very
One
good
for you,
question.
Pablo.
That's a very good question that goes beyond this scheme. And we can talk a lot about that. Yeah, so the association is an international association. We do other events where we organize events throughout the year. We organize publications. We have publications. We have our events are online, and in person. They used to be all in person. Now they're going to be hybrid from now on. We are starting to plan. Actually, this year we started to plan workshops and courses, free for members. We are planning to have roundtables and seminars. Our membership is quite international as well. So there's also a lot of networking. We are planning to launch a mentorship program as well. So there's a number of initiatives. And that's just the Systematics Association. And the Linnean Society is even more. So any of the two associations have more to offer to the members beyond this scheme. So that's one of the things we hope. We know people have to be members of the associations in order to apply to these grants, but we hope that they stay members afterwards. One thing I wanted to mention there is a question saying how are reviewers selected for the scrutiny of the submitted applications? They are members of the Systematics Association, right?
So the reviewers are selected from part of the fellows at the Linnean Society and people from the Council of the Systematics Association. If we need more experts, we are contacting experts in taxonomy, systematics, evolution, phylogenetics at organizations as closely associated with these societies, which is, for example, from Kew Gardens for botanical questions or the Natural History Museum. And the review post is that each, and that's actually sort of adding why it's, even though it's just one page, and then it's sort of 151 pages, it's quite we try to have a fair review process. So each project is reviewed by 3 reviewers. And the reviewers score the applications. And then according to the scores, and the reviewers receive the guidelines, which is like the applications, basically what's in the eligibility and outline that you receive. And they receive that to review the applications. And then the applications get scored. And then the ones that receive the highest scores will receive the funding.
I was a reviewer in past years, and I think from the point of view of a reviewer, we want to see projects that are, this is a piece of advice, projects that are self-contained and that are realistic. We know the money is not much, so we don't expect the money to cover massive, large-scale studies. So if you have an application where you say you're going to infer a phylogeny with 1,000 samples using whole genome data, that's likely not realistic with £1,000, and that's going to hinder the project. So, and the reviewers all work in the disciplines, so they know, or they have an idea of what the costs are of the work you propose. So keep in mind, even if we are not experts on the group of a study, we will know the techniques. So keep that in mind when you prepare your projects. And when do we expect to announce the awardees, and more or less?
I think I had mid-May, and hopefully now that things are, like with COVID, things are calming down and people have less pressured work environment, hopefully we be able to stick better to the to that deadline. I mean, the last 2 years, it just was because we had a huge amount of applications, and in the last year, people were working from home and people had lots of commitments, family commitments, homeschooling, all these things. And so that meant the reviewers needed more time to work through the application. And then in general, I mean, maybe people attending who submitted applications weren't funded. I mean, overall, on the societies and the reviewers feel that the standard is very high. I mean, the application, the overall standard is very high, and the type of projects and the research questions are always very exciting. And a lot of the reviewers say, and I feel the same about it, like when I read the project, I get very excited to see what kind of research is out there and what people are doing. So overall, the reviewers really enjoy, well, it's a time commitment, but people enjoy from the societies and people taking part in review the process, because it shows like what diverse research is happening worldwide. And we fund, I think it's on the list. I mean, I think this year we funded from maybe it's 15 different countries. So it's very international. It's across all, like, I think we have everything from archaea to plants, extinct, I don't know, dinosaurs, all the different groups. So it's, yeah, a lot of exciting research. Well, we hope and we feel that we can contribute to supporting exciting research in taxonomy and systematics. And with that, okay, one more reviewer. Scrutiny is paid, as a paid. No, it's all voluntary work. Nobody get paid to do the reviewing.
Just to add to that, the Systematics Association is run by volunteers. So none of us gets any money for that.
Yeah, so I think that's it for me. I don't know, Leonie, Pablo, you have some final words. It's 4:15. So I just want to say thanks people joining. Thanks a lot. And if you have any other question, email me. So if you email to LinnéSys Systematics Association, the emails, yeah, they end up in my email inbox.
Do you want to type the email account on the chat? If you know it.
No, I don't know it, but it's on the application webpage, and it might even be on the main on the for the call.
Can't find it here. It might be on the website, on the page. Or you can contact us via our other channels, social media, both of the societies or the general information email, and we will reply and direct any emails to Anne.
Yeah, so Anna just put it in the email. Cool.
Brilliant.
Cool. Yeah. So
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you very much. And I don't know, Pablo or Leonie, you want to do the final word?
I think that was great. I have nothing else to add, Leonie.
Yeah, I think it was brilliant. It was really good. And I think hopefully everything's been cleared up for people. And Pablo, you explained it all very clearly from what we could see. And it's quite a lot to take in. So yeah, it's brilliant. But obviously, if anyone has any questions, you can contact Anne or anybody at the Systematics Association. You can also email anybody at the Linnean Society through our info@linnean.org, which I'll put in the chat in a second. But yeah, please get in touch.
Yeah, thank you all very much and good luck with your applications.
Thank you.